Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience Podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
Did I read correctly that there's over 1 billion people worldwide that now have internet access that didn't have it just a few years ago?
Yeah, more than 1 billion.
More than 1 billion.
Yeah,
That's
amazing.
A major impact. I mean, that's all those people watching, like you said, watching YouTube and listening to podcasts and all that kind of thing. That's just amazing.
And they're learning English, which is the language of the next century.
Yeah.
And
Well, just from reading the introduction of your book, The Next Half Century, I don't know anybody that could read that and not get fired up about the next 50 years, about what's coming and how the quality of life worldwide, not just in the U.S., but worldwide, the quality of life and standard of living is going to go up dramatically, it sounds like.
well, it already has.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. The first world countries, they're good, just stay good. European Union,
Yeah.
we are, Japan, Korea. First world countries, they do fine. The only problem we're facing in these first world countries is aging. Because you take a country like Japan, and you have 25% of their entire population is over age 65.
Wow.
And,
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, and the age of retirement there is, well, if you're over 65, you're still working because they don't have a replacement, because countries like Japan and Korea and China do not have immigration.
Right.
No one wants to move there.
Right. Everybody wants to move here.
Everybody, exactly. Here and Europe
Yeah.
as well. But the reality is that Japan's population is shrinking. The big shrink is China.
Oh, wow.
They are shrinking at a pace. In the next 40 years, they will lose 125 million population and can't do anything.
That's a third the
about
size
it.
of this country.
Yeah.
My goodness gracious.
Because Mao Zedong put in a one-child policy.
That's right.
30 years later, they got rid of it.
Yeah, they don't have,
But
they're behind the curve, so to speak.
Well, worse than that, it seems that genetically, they wound up with far more males than females.
Wow.
So here we're in a situation where you have tens of millions of male millennials, nobody to marry.
Interesting.
And the result of that is, and it really just follows, is their household spending is going down.
Wow.
Because they're not having enough new households formed. Nobody to buy the homes or the condominiums. And China is in deep doo-doo.
Sounds like it.
And they can't do anything about it.
Sounds like they're headed for a decline.
Oh, they are. And it's unfortunate. It's not an attractive place to move.
Yeah.
The English language is pretty easy to conquer.
Right.
Whereas
The Chinese language.
try
not
Chinese,
so much.
Japanese,
Right.
Korean,
Mandarin, Cantonese,
or
right?
Russian.
Yeah. Yeah.
These are all different alphabets.
Right.
So in most of these countries now, kids start learning English in the first grade.
Oh, sure. That's smart.
Certainly everywhere in the Far East, that's true.
Yeah.
So the world is becoming an Americanized world. And I think the good news is that, with the exception of Russia's problems, everybody else is doing pretty well.
Sounds like it.
You know, the Russian problem is that they have been on a downhill course since the end of World War II.
Yeah,
75 years ago,
exactly.
they lost 25 million people in World War II.
That's just amazing.
Most of which were males, of course, and they never recovered. And their birth rate is essentially zero. And they took so much money of theirs and put it into military and bombs.
Huge portion. Yeah.
Wasn't quite enough there to take care of education. So the dollars they've allocated for education have declined dramatically. And they've had a substantial out-migration, not just because of Ukraine, but generally speaking, a lot of move-outs, most of whom are college educated.
And they don't want to be there anymore. So let me ask you this. What do you think the internet access, or the increase in internet access, how do you think that's affecting Russia? Is that something where they're seeing life in the Western states or Western countries and the U.S. and that kind of thing, in Canada, and they're wanting to flock to it? They're trying to figure out a way to get to it?
Oh, no, that's been an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
It's they've been.
But it sounds like with more and more people gaining access to the internet, maybe it's multiplying.
Plus, you have there was a huge Jewish population in Russia.
Okay.
Almost all of whom were highly educated.
Yeah.
And they've all moved to Israel or here.
Right.
And so there's a major brain drain.
Brain drain, yeah.
in Russia now. Nothing they can do about it.
Yeah.
Their population is shrinking, and they don't have enough labor for their entry-level jobs. It's sort of fascinating. Russia's has a huge business in wheat.
Oh, yeah.
And other grains.
Yeah, they're a huge producer, yeah.
It's mostly in the western part, around Vladivostok. The grain is all harvested by Chinese labor that comes across every year.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
And there's nobody in Russia who wants to do that kind of work.
Oh, my goodness.
So you get this tremendous, we're talking hundreds of thousands of Chinese
influx
people
across
who come across to help Russia.
Wow.
So it's
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story. And then the European Union, where everything is going swimmingly well, 28 countries, and their problem is aging. They too have an extremely low fertility rate, and their population over the next 40 or 50 years is on a negative path.
Wow.
Now, they are admitting a lot of new people.
Okay.
And will continue to have to.
Yeah. Sounds like out of necessity.
Yeah, it really is. So, they're doing okay.
Yeah.
The only problem is they don't have any oil, so they've had to buy it from Russia.
Yeah.
But the rest of the world is really fascinating. It's not all good, but it's a lot better than we read in the press.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. And that was one of the things that when I read the introduction to the next half century, which is your book that's being released next month, I was floored. I had an idea in my mind of where the world was headed, and this completely changed. But I should be used to that because your first book completely changed my outlook too.
Yes.
I mean, like flipped it completely on its head. So I do have a question for you. So in your book, The Great Divide, you talk about a $40 trillion transfer of wealth. Is that now 72 trillion?
I suspect it probably is. Could be more.
I saw an article the other day that said that there's some $72 trillion estimated that's being transferred. And that just boggles the mind.
You know, there has been an enormous amount of press and stories written that say today's young generation will not live as well as their parents.
Right.
And that is so misguided. It's remarkable.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the net worth of parents today who have kids who are, let's say, pre-millennial,
yeah,
you follow the path and you think in terms of what modern parents like you have in terms of net worth, in terms of pension funds, in terms of other investments. And I will tell you that your kids and my kids are living a hell of a lot better than we ever did. And I just think of my kids and how they live, and it's no relationship to when I grew up.
Yeah. So my children had a much better childhood than I did. Much, much better. It wasn't perfect, but it was a much, much better childhood. They had a much higher standard of living, all that kind of thing. But one of the things that I told them, you know, I grew up on a farm in Oklahoma.
Yep.
And one of the things that I told them was, growing up, and parenting, you know, is a big passion of mine. And I'm big about being their dad. And I told them when they were kids, I said, listen, if I had a time machine, you would go back and you would work on the farm in Oklahoma with my grandfather like I did. You'd work in 100-degree heat, 90+% humidity.
Yep.
You'd muck out stalls. Yep. You'd do whatever you have to do. And I told him, I said, it was absolutely the best thing for me growing up, because everything since then has seemed easy. That was some of the toughest, hardest work I've ever done in my life. And what happens for me, or what happened with them, was I said, look, you're going to have a much better life than I did. That's my mission. My mission is you're going to have a much better life than I did. But if you ever sound like you're spoiled, sound like you're entitled, sound like you're complaining, I will find a horse ranch out here. I will take you and you will muck out stalls for free until I'm convinced that you're no longer spoiled. And man, I'm telling you, they took me seriously. Every time they started to complain or acted a little entitled or whatever, I'd ask them, you ready to go to the horse ranch? You ready to go muck out some stalls? They get right back in line. Yep. It was amazing how that worked. So we hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out Calendly.com/Rio760.